Bitcoin is over $73,000 right now. Ethereum is just around hanging around this $4,000 level. And in this video, I just want to give you a bit of a general update on my thoughts about the charts, about the markets, where we are in the cycle, and what we could potentially expect next, and how to maybe best play what's happening here. Some strategies, some thoughts, and overall, I think a pretty good update. So make sure to grab your favorite beverage and let's dive straight in. Alright, so let me start out with some data here, and we have to understand what is driving this bull market right now. And there is, of course, a lot to be said about these ETFs that have been approved at the beginning of the year that are literally driving in billions of inflows. So let me share some charts with you and then share my thoughts here. So even like this yesterday, you can see spot Bitcoin ETFs had a record $1 billion of inflows. So that's $1 billion in a single day that is now flowing into these ETFs. BlackRock at this point in time own more than 200,000 Bitcoin. There is a real scarcity issue here because there will ever only be 21 million Bitcoin. There's not even 21 million in existence, let alone available in supply. Of course, there's coins that have been locked up. Satoshi has 1 million coins that haven't moved. There have been tons of coins, millions, where people have lost their keys to, etc., etc. So there's only quite a small amount of Bitcoin that's available on the open market. And at the pace that things are going, these ETFs are just buying them all up. You can see over here, the Bitcoin purchased by ETFs doubled since Monday, the 11th of March. We are now on the 14th of March. And you can see here, Tuesday, March 12th, Bitcoin purchased by ETFs. 14,706 Bitcoin were purchased, and at this point in time, there's about 900 Bitcoin being produced per day, in this case 881. And of course, the halving is coming up in about a month, which means that 900 per day gets cut to about 450 per day. So if these inflows into these ETFs continue, and the newly issued Bitcoin gets cut in half even more, what could happen to the price of Bitcoin? And this is an absolutely interesting phenomenon at this point in time. Is it really possible that these spot Bitcoin ETFs have opened up the floodgates to massive capital that is now coming in from institutions, from pension funds, from all sorts of investors, even private individuals who are high net worth individuals worth 30, 50, $100 million who never want to buy Bitcoin in Coinbase and store it themselves and have all those issues, but now they can simply buy a legal and compliant vehicle that they are used to, an ETF, and that way have exposure to Bitcoin. Could it really be that we are going to see continued billions and billions and billions continue to pour into Bitcoin over the coming months, especially after the halving? Is it possible that if we look at gold, right, which is at this point in time about $14 trillion of market cap, could we see Bitcoin at some point reach 50% of that, or maybe even the same market cap as gold over time, over the years, over the next decade? That would mean at this point in time basically more than a 6x on the price of Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin is sitting here at 70,000, well, 6 times 7 is over $400,000 per Bitcoin. And if you do the math this way, you compare it to the market cap of gold, you look at what's happening with ETFs, well, maybe over the coming years, that's where the price is going. It doesn't seem that crazy. The question is going to be, what happens this cycle? How long does this cycle continue going up? Do we go from 70,000 to 400,000 without any sort of meaningful pullback? Or do we find some sort of top at around 100,000 or 120,000, pull back down in some sort of major financial market crash, once again, another crypto bear market? And does it go from maybe 120,000 all the way back down to 40,000 or 30,000 before it goes to 400,000? That is obviously the big question, because timing very much matters, and you don't want to buy the top and then sit through a 50, 60, 70% drawdown for 2 or 3 years and have your capital draw down and be unavailable to you, even if you do continue to hold for the long term. So all of that is interesting to consider, and that is really at this point in time what is making this bull market different, and of course what is driving these crazy pumps without any sort of pullback. Because with $1 billion a day in inflows, obviously not every single day, but $1 billion in a day, that's huge buying pressure, and there's not enough supply. and that's just going to keep propping the prices up until these inflows stop, or until they slow down, or until people who have already bought are going to start selling, and that is going to be the question. Now you can see over here, this is also an example of a comparison to a previous cycle. The previous cycle is overlaid. The current cycle is the white one, and you can see over here the halving is coming up. So it's basically previous cycle action overlaid in a similar time frame compared to the previous halvings and what happened before the halving and after the halving. And as we already know, after the halving has typically, over the past few cycles, led to massive upside for 12 to 18 months after the halving. We have the halving happening now in April. What is going to happen this time? Is it going to be different? Is the cycle going to repeat once again? We are different in the sense that we have already front run the cycle. We are at the all-time highs before the halving. That didn't happen in the two previous cycles. So in that sense, it is different. It makes sense because the ETFs have been approved and maybe people in the know started bidding it up already before that. The question is going to be now, do we front run the cycle? Do we peak somewhere around the halving in April or May, just like we did in 2021, and do we get followed by a crash? Or do we see more continued upside? Does the cycle indeed repeat for another 6 or 12 months past the halving? And in that case, if that really does continue with these inflows, could we see Bitcoin go to 2 or 3 or 400,000 within the next 6 to 12 months? You can see there's also all sorts of other entities. For example, this person that they call Mr. 100, because he tends to buy, or this person or this entity tends to buy 100 Bitcoin at a time. And you can see very specifically here on the 13th, they bought 700 Bitcoin, all in clips of around about 100 Bitcoin at a time. So who is this? Is this another country? Is it a hedge fund? Is it a very wealthy billionaire who's buying at this point? Who knows? But you can see there is so much demand. This person is buying the ETFs. We have Michael Saylor, who's borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars or selling convertible notes, 700 million, 800 million, 500 million at a time, just continuing to buy. And there is obviously a limited supply of Bitcoin. So while there are people still selling off their Bitcoin to the whales are gobbling it up. And that is why we haven't seen a major pullback at this point yet. There is just too much demand. So let's dive into the charts here. We're at $73,000. It's pretty much the all-time high. Everyone who's ever bought Bitcoin in the history of Bitcoin at this point is in profit. Okay, no one is in drawdown. Everyone is here in profit. So this is interesting. We're at all-time highs. We're in price discovery. Okay, we're beyond the 69,000 that we were at the last cycle. And this just looks incredibly bullish. Combine it with everything that I've just said about all these inflows and all this massive demand. You know, as long as that continues, we can expect price to continue going higher. And just purely from a chart perspective, from a technical perspective, how can we judge the top? Well, there's all sorts of on-chain charts that I will go into maybe in another video, not at this point in time. You have all the technical charts, the pi cycle top, the MVRV Z-score, the golden ratio multiplier, all those kind of charts that can give us some sort of indication of whether Bitcoin is overbought or oversold compared to those metrics, compared to previous cycles. And that is obviously all helpful to look at in Confluence. Then you just have the pure price action, which there's really not much to go by because we are now in price discovery. There's no historical resistance or levels that it has traded at the past. Maybe one thing that we can say is we can draw a trend line like this over the previous cycle tops, which kind of gives us this area over here, this little square between, say, 95 and 105,000, which has confluence with, if you take the 2022 bear market, if you take a 50% extension or 61.8, that's kind of a confluence over there, and it makes sense. The 100,000 is obviously a massive psychological level that everyone is looking at for Bitcoin to hit. It's already hit it, obviously, in certain other currencies, like in Australian dollars, it's already hit 100,000 and it's gone beyond that. In the US dollar currency, obviously not yet, but at this point you can see, look at the strength behind these monthly candles. We still have more than 2 weeks to go at this point for this to close. So it wouldn't be that impossible to imagine this by the end of April, by the end of next month, maybe even sooner if it really pumps, to be at between $95,000 and $105,000. And then we have to wait and see what happens at this point. So look, bringing this down to the daily chart, you have to see this is going absolutely vertical. How high can it continue? Well, it can continue even higher than most people think. But at some point, this is going to stop. At some point, it is going to reverse back down again. So the best strategy, in my opinion, for riding this out is to look at these charts, to follow the charts. And as long as this daily chart and above, so daily, 3-day, weekly, monthly, as long as all those higher time frames are still a bullish trend, then the trend is your friend, and it is wise to try and ride that bull market up, that bull trend, as much as possible. As soon as we start to see technical reversal signals of this trend where it's either exhausting, distributing, has a bearish market structure break, well, then it is time to get more defensive, cautious, maybe even take profits, maybe get out the market, maybe hedge with an equal short to your long position, and so on and so forth. There's all sorts of options, and I don't want to get too technical. I don't have the time to go into all of this. If you want to learn more about it, join my VIP. I explain this in great detail in my course, in my Discord every single day. The link is in the description down below. Come and join us there if you want the specific details. But simply what you can do is look at the previous cycles. Look what happens here. This is clearly, obviously, distribution with 3 thrusts higher here. And then once we had, let me zoom in here a little bit more. You can see over here, it made a low, it made a higher low, and here it made a lower low. So this would be a technical market structure break, in which case it signals, besides the distribution, that is all signs for a potential warning to be able to get out. At this point in time, also, when it makes a lower low after just being in an uptrend, it's also a warning sign. If, for example, it loses any sort of key moving average, like the 50-week moving average or the 3-day 50 moving average, those are signs to look out for. So at this point in time, you can see we are still just making higher highs and higher lows. And until that changes, the trend is up. And we could go to 80, 90, 100,000, maybe even higher than 100,000. As soon as we get those technical signs of exhaustion or trend reversal, then in my opinion, it is time to get cautious. What we should also know is that as long as Bitcoin is going higher, altcoins are probably just going to kind of tag along and lag behind. But as soon as Bitcoin kind of consolidates and has its peak or its distribution, like it did over here in April of last year, you can see for a period of about a month or a month and a half, it spent this time kind of in a range between 50 and 65,000, consolidating, and that is when altcoins really went nuts. So I still expect the same here. Bitcoin is currently stealing the show. All the money is kind of flowing into Bitcoin through the ETFs, but also just in general, people are still buying Bitcoin. Once that starts to slow down and Bitcoin starts to range, whatever that's going to be, maybe Bitcoin goes to 105,000 and it ranges between 85 and 105 for about a month. At that point, we can really start to see, hopefully, the capital flow into Ethereum and into altcoins, and we get our crazy altcoin season where these altcoins are going to do 5 or 10x in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks. Everything goes nuts, the whole market goes nuts, and then we get some sort of extended correction. That is still what I'm leaning towards, potentially 50% drop in all these markets, just like we did in May of 2021, right? Altcoins peaked over here, we had a 50% drop, and then we have to see, is that really the end? Is that the top of the bull market cycle? Or does it repeat like 2021? And do we indeed get a second leg towards the end of the year where it just continues going higher after a bit of a healthy correction? We can also potentially look at 2017 here, if this is what could be happening here, where the whole 2017 cycle was basically from January all the way until December. And it had a much more parabolic nature, no double tops. It was one massive bull run, and it had corrections along the way. Sure, you can see here, if you look at these kind of pullbacks, that was a 28% correction along the way. Over here, this was a 40% correction. So it is also possible that it just continues going up and we start to see 30 to 40% corrections along the way, and maybe we have a crazy extended bull cycle parabola like 2017 where it goes from here all the way into November. But we don't know that, and I would be cautious to assume something like that. So I think it's better to be cautious to anticipate a potential, some sort of top in towards the end of April or May with a potential correction after that, then assume that it's just going to go up all the way to November. Maybe it does go up all the way to November, but again, like I showed you, there will be 30 or 40% corrections along the way if that is the case. So either way, the best way, in my opinion, is here to follow the charts. As long as the trend is bullish, we ride the bull as much as possible. Altcoins still have a long way to go, in my opinion. I think they haven't even really started to move yet. We haven't had a crazy altcoin season yet, and I hope we're going to end up seeing that within the next 1 to 2 months as Bitcoin still has a pump, then kind of consolidates, and hopefully that capital rotates into the altcoins. So that is where we're at. I think we still have some time to go. I think upside both in Bitcoin and then a lot more upside in altcoins to come. And I think it's a matter of being patient. Obviously, you have to be positioned right now. If you're not yet positioned, this is still the time to get involved. The longer you wait, the higher it goes, the less chance for upside, the higher chance of buying the top, okay? So making profits with crypto, it's all about buying low and selling high if you want to get involved with spot. And then after that, of course, we can trade and we can short it on the way down, sure, but that becomes a lot more technical. So if you're just looking for a kind of buy and hold play where you just buy some coins and try and ride it up and get a 2x or a 5x or a 10x, whatever the case is, the sooner you get involved, the better it is. The longer you wait, the higher it goes, the higher the risk is, and the less chance for you actually profiting with this. If you want to learn from me, if you want to join my VIP membership, get access to me, get into the Discord, the community, get access to my daily charts, market insights, all that kind of stuff, where I can explain in a lot more detail. And if you have questions, I can answer them. Come and join us. The link is in the description down below. I'm closing the doors in less than a month on April 8th. So you want to sign up at least before then. But literally, like I said, the sooner the better, because the higher these markets go, the less chance there is for success. There's a 60-day money-back guarantee. You have no risk. Come and join us. Come and see what it's like. Come and get all my updates. And then you still have a decision if you want to stay or if you want to get your money back. Either way, that is up to you. I'm offering all the support, the guidance, the service here. Come and join us. Link in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.